this was going to be the theme of the stream today, is I was going to explain the thinking process when playing Crazyhouse. So e4 is a very good move because it opens up your queen and your bishop. It's considered the best move as white in Crazyhouse, although I myself play d4. E5 is very theoretical, and some say it's that there are it's too symmetrical, and so white can get an advantage. D5 Scandinavian is very playable. E6 is very nice, but it creates dark square weaknesses. So I'm going to go for knight f6, and this is a variation where often called the Kroski gambit, where you're even willing to give up the knight for a pawn just to create a nice pawn structure. And as a chess player, you might say, "What? A nice pawn structure?" But a very solid pawn structure around your castled king. So even if your opponent attacks with pawn on h6, well, in fact, he doesn't even have a pawn yet, takes, redrop a pawn. It's a more solid structure because black only has one way of attacking. He can't attack so easily this way because of this pawn on f6. So it stops these attacks coming from the center of the board, and white has to stick with these flank attacks. Now I've done this move d4, and the purpose of d4 is with an eye on e3. And so I'm going to support that d4 push with the bishop, and the implicit threat is a pawn on e3 landing at some point in the future, and a beginning of a dark square attack on the white king. Now, yeah, if you see on my blog, there's a guide to Crazyhouse, and that has links to many other guides to Crazyhouse, and one of those guides is something called the Master Tan Guide to Light and Dark Squares. And yeah, I should think a second. So what I did this move to check and to defend my bishop, but I've got to be slightly wary that this pawn, for now, is hanging. So if I go straight in for an attack here, that is feasible. But he does have knight takes pawn. So position, we've been talking a lot about position, especially when playing slow house, but when playing Crazyhouse proper, tactics are very important, checks are very important, because checks give you initiative. So if I drop a pawn on e3, he does have knight takes pawn. And then I have to calculate the line. Pawn takes pawn, he can't take with the queen, because the queen would be pinned. So he'd have to take with the king. Then I have queen takes queen, bishop takes queen, bishop takes knight is check, knight takes. I feel like I've got a lot of initiatives, even though I might lose a pawn in that variation. I feel like I've got a lot of initiative. Now the other option is after pawn takes pawn, he could just take, after pawn at e3, he could just take that pawn. I take back, bishop takes, but then yeah, that pawn is defended 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I've got three defenders, 3 attackers, so I don't lose that pawn. But another option is that after pawn takes pawn, he could then take the bishop or something. Or even after pawn here, he could take the bishop. But So if he just takes the bishop immediately, I've got pawn takes pawn check, king takes pawn. Yeah, the bishop is actually hanging, so I can't do this. After pawn here, pawn takes knight takes bishop. Yeah, I could go queen takes, but then I'm losing. So I'm somehow not. Yeah, this is somehow not working out as I would. The tactics are not working out as I would like. So I'm having to think of other options. Okay. So other options: move the bishop out and defend this pawn with the pawn. That's the other option. So bishop check. So although this is taking away the defense of this pawn, I'm going to have to secure it up. One shouldn't be too materially minded in Crazyhouse, but this is the the base of my attack, so I have to be a little bit concerned. Bishop here is a good move because it's threatening to take it and I can't take back. I could now drop pawn here. Now I need to, again, look at the tactics. If I go pawn here, bishop takes bishop, queen takes bishop. Well, yeah, that works. But then he can then take, block. Yeah, so the problem is I'm trying to control, this pawn is trying to do too much in that kind of situation. So I'm going to play a kind of, go for a solid setup. I was thinking of going in for an attack, but I think he's got a good kind of grip of everything for now, so I'm going for this check, knight takes, and again, could I go in straight for an attack? He has knight takes pawn, so that might be possible. So after pawn here, pawn takes pawn, I'd be happy because I'd be in on f2. But so he's going to take this way, for sure. If I go pawn here, what about knight takes pawn? But then I can go pawn takes knight and it's check, and you have to go king takes. So I'm actually picking up a knight there. So yeah, so actually the fact I'm getting to take on d2 is giving me a slight tactical edge in that I can attack that knight. And if the knight just moves, I got pawn takes pawn with check, then an exchange of queens and I'm in on e3. And then I've got what I've been striving to achieve the whole time, which is some kind of dark square attack. Now I just noticed there's another move I hadn't quite considered, which is pawn here, knight takes this pawn, that killing the base of my pawn chain. I win a knight, the other knight takes back, or I don't win a knight, or I go this way, pawn takes pawn, king takes, and then drop another pawn. So I think that's nice. So I still will have another pawn in hand because I'm taking this pawn here. So even if he takes this, I've got pawn takes pawn, king takes pawn, dropping another pawn here with check. So he doesn't do that. Okay. Okay, so now in this position I've got a choice. Do I go straight in with a pawn here with check? But he could just take that with the king or the queen. But then I'd have queen takes pawn check, queen takes queen, pawn takes queen. So that's quite threatening. But I think more powerful is simply just going pawn takes pawn. So now e3 is now the new base of my attack. Pawn takes knight is check. That's why there's a slight problem for him at the moment, because I get to take the knight and then I get to take the queen and then I get to safely castle. That's the slight problem that he's facing. Okay, so he plays a good move, just backing off. This pawn now is well defended. He doesn't have any direct attacks on me, so meaning like he doesn't have any knights in hand, only pawns, and I can block that. So I'm just going to develop. I did have pawn here check, but I just felt he just sidestepped, and I don't see the follow-up. So what I'm actually considering, I just completely missed this. Yeah. Now if that had been a check, then that would have been disastrous, because I'd have had to block the check, and then he'd have won this pawn. The fact that it's not a check means I get just a sort of window of opportunity to defend this pawn. Now what I was actually thinking about was pawn here, and then taking a knight for here, but I don't think I can lose the queen. And that bishop is a dangerous bishop. Like if queens get exchanged, I can't castle anymore. So the two moves I'm thinking of are, do I go bishop to f2, but then I lose the chance of putting a knight on f2, which is what I'd really love to have some kind of setup where I have a pawn on d2 and a knight on f2. That's not sure. The other option is pawn here. Then I could potentially get the knight, but he could take back. So the tactics are quite sharp. So king here, bishop takes knight, queen takes knight here. He could just go here, potentially. And the point is, if he ever takes this pawn, I've got pawn takes knight, and then I've got... That's the other variation I need to be worried about, because then there's a potential for an exchange of queens. So pawn takes knight check, king would have to take or a knight would have to take. And then, so pawn here, knight takes pawn, pawn here, knight takes pawn takes knight, knight takes pawn. Yeah, and then the bishop actually covers this square, which is annoying. So I'm going to go with, that's annoying. And then another possibility, by the way, completely different, is just to simply go queen takes bishop, knight takes, and bishop here and pick up the knight. And that way I'm picking up the knight, which actually I really want for my attack. So that's actually another possibility. But then I'm losing the defense of my king. But that's quite a tempting possibility. The bishop covers any c8 check, so it is a very reasonable possibility. So moves I'm considering, I think I'll go with this one, giving up the queen for 2 pieces. And the reason I'm doing that, it clears away all the pieces on my side of the board, and it gives him a queen in hand for sure, but hopefully, yeah, he does have one move, which would be quite annoying with that queen. Okay, hi there, Riemann12. Pawn at d2 seems likeable here. Yeah, well, this is a league match, so obviously give suggestions after the move, but yeah, it's all good. So bishop check. He doesn't have any counter check. Okay, and then bishop takes knight. Okay, so now we're in the game again. Or I'm down a lot of time because I've been trying to explain my thinking process, but that's fine. So I think what I want to do here is just get my king castled in a way, and there is one move which maybe you can guess for white, which does concern me slightly. Yeah, an intermezzo does seem annoying if there is one, and I did check. Bishop covers c8, there's no pawn drop here. There is one move which I think I would be slightly worried about in this position. So yeah, I'm trying to think, what would I do against that? I think I'm okay. Yeah, it is actually a little bit concerning. Yeah, okay, I think I know what I would do, but it's not a happy situation. Yeah, and that is the move that I was concerned about. Very nicely played. Because I don't want to lose my piece, so I've either got a choice of knight here or bishop here. Knight here was my first feeling. I just knight here, simple. What's the problem? He could just take it, and I take his queen, and then he does have a follow-up check with the knight. But then I can just block. So I think it's kind of high risk, but okay, I should really think a second, because then I was ruling it out because of knight takes knight, and then I discovered check, and ruling it out with bishop here. But the problem with bishop here, he's then got queen takes pawn. And I really want my bishop for this square later, just to protect my rook. And yeah, material is important in a way. So knight here feels like the right thing to do, but I'm a little bit worried about knight takes knight, bishop takes queen. and then does he have anything? So that's the slight thing that I'm concerned about. But I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to play it. But yeah, that would be quite a wise thing to do. In a way, I've given him my queen for 2 pieces, so a quite smart thing for him to do is to give his queen back for 2 pieces. So Riemann12 says, interesting to how amount of calculation you do, because I feel like I play Crazyhouse mostly instinctively, and I'm about the same rating as you. Yeah, but do note that this is a 10 plus 10 game, so there is the time to calculate, and he does the right thing. So this is a mate threat. Notice this square is covered. That was a very important part of my calculation. Now, maybe I missed something. So yeah, definitely this has been a very interesting game. So does he have a reveal? He has stuff like knight here and takes rook, which is very interesting. But he doesn't have time to take the rook because I've got a mate threat. He does have stuff like bishop takes bishop, but then I can take that knight back. So any reveal of the knight, if he takes the bishop, I can simply take the knight back. Although he does then have this check coming in here, but I'll have a counterattack as well. And remember, now I've got a queen in hand, so it's getting sharp here. And it's this kind of time of the game when actually I like to have lots of time on the clock, because you don't really need time on the clock for the opening. You need it when you probably have a force mate in 5 or 6 or 7 and you just want to calculate it properly. Not yet, but if you played the wrong move in the next couple of moves, there could be mate. Okay, so he goes for this. Oh, this is very nice because he's going to go knight takes knight check. This is a very. I was simply going to say knight takes pawn. What's the deal? That's very nice. Well, I can't go here because he'll just promote. So I either just go here, but then he has knight takes pawn check. So yeah, that is a very nice move. Yeah, can I take this? Okay, now I have to be very defensive. Just make sure I've got very solid defense. I'm considering, do I want a bishop or do I want... So queen takes pawn could be coming. I could go with the queen. Queen would also be possible. Queen would also be reasonable. Could even go king takes knight as well. There's no real reason why I can't just take that knight. He hasn't got any knight checks on me immediately. He does have queen here, and then this. And that's a little bit annoying because I don't have a knight to protect this. Well, I go pawn here, and then he's got queen takes pawn. But then he has a pawn for here, so it's a little bit risky, that. So do I take this knight? That's the kind of dilemma. He's only got knights in exchange. I think I do take this knight. So now he's got 2 knights in hand. The one move I'm slightly concerned is this maneuver, followed by a pawn drop on e6. I have to admit that is a little bit worrying, but I think I can. He's only got 1 pawn, so I think I'm okay. In the meantime, I need to calculate when he does bishop takes bishop. Have I got? That would be the key. Have I got a mating idea? I've got pawn here. Yeah, it's really close to mate because I have so many pieces in hand. So let's see, I need a knight and a queen. Let's think. If I go pawn here, he comes here. This square is covered. Maybe pawn here? Yeah, pawn here clears away. Okay, so that's a good move. I could defend with the knight simply, actually, and that just covers it, everything. I mean, I think I'll just do that, and that does give away the bishop potentially, but then he would get mated if he took the bishop. So I am losing a knight from my attack, so I'm going to hope that the knight is not the key piece. And I think it isn't, because just trying to calculate pawn here, if he goes this way he gets mated immediately, if he goes this way he gets mated immediately. So he has to give me a knight anyway. Which is nice. And now now is the time I really like to have time to calculate. So I've got bishop here, king here, queen here. If he goes back, he gets mated for sure, just a pawn drop here. So he has to come up here. So, yeah, this is the time I really would appreciate time. Okay, I'm going to go with bishop here. It defends this bishop as well as anything else. But I'm not seeing mate. And in the meantime, I've just got to watch out for my own king. He's got two knights, a bishop, and a pawn. Okay, the knights, he's got no checks on me. So this is very important. There are no knight checks on me. There is a pawn check, but then he just have to sacrifice the queen. So that's not really working. So I'm just going to just take this bishop, and I'm threatening a bishop here, which would be checkmate. So I have to be very careful that my own king is safe, and I think my own king is safe. And now I've got a nice threat on his king. I've got lots of Twitch chat, which I'm not going to read because I see there are lots of people talking about the moves. So I'll definitely check it out at the end of this game. Okay, so he's going to defend f2, and then I have to think how to finish it off. I can check with a knight, but then he can push forwards, but then I can check with the pawn, and then he takes this knight, and then I can check with the bishop, and that will be checkmate. Yeah. So knight here, he'll defend f2, but he won't be able to defend, I don't think, everything else. So knight here, king here, drop a pawn here, which is defended, so king takes knight, and then the bishop backs off. Will be checkmate. So, sorry, that's not correct. Not the bishop backing off. Maybe a new bishop, because otherwise the king could come back to here. So yeah, really, really interesting game. This first game with Forhavu, and hopefully you've enjoyed me going through the thinking process all the while. Now, is there any defense? He has to defend this. So if I'm him and I'm thinking, I need to defend a bit. There are two things. Do I have an attack? Do I have anything to attack with? Meaning, do I have any idea to attack, or an attack which would use up the key pieces? And the answer, I don't think he does. And then the second thing is, then I can't attack. I have to defend. If my attack isn't fast enough, I have to defend. And the two key squares he has to defend are here, and either here or here or here. These sorts of finishing. So it's quite difficult. Is there a piece? So I'd think to myself, is there a piece that defends, say, here and here? And there is, actually. There's knight here. So knight there would be interesting, an interesting attempt. So knight here. Yeah, and then I don't have pawn here because that knight would cover this square. And so then I'd be thinking again, oh my goodness, how am I going to finish it off? But still I think I'd be fine because I'd have knight here, king here, and just bishop here picking up the queen. So I wouldn't have direct mate, but I can just pick up even more material and my king is still safe. So that would be That would be one idea. Now, is there anything else? Knight here. Would there be another way of mating? I could also drop a bishop here, and that forces king takes bishop. Or a pawn here, sorry. A pawn here forces king takes bishop. Then knight here, which threatens to take the queen in case my mating attack fails. If he goes back, I've got bishop at a4 checkmate. So he has to come forward to here. And then, as I said, if I don't see a mate, I can always take his queen and my king is still safe. And then, yeah, I'm not seeing it. I think I would just take the queen in that scenario. Okay, so I think I've settled this game, so I'll look at the Twitch chat. Okay, so I've got to try and remember, what was my variation again? It was knight here check, pushing the king up. Pawn here check, forcing the king to take my knight. Unless I miscalculated. And then bishop here, checkmate. Yeah, so I think that was a very instructive game, and so hopefully you enjoyed listening to my thinking process during it. And I've got one more to go. Is this, and Antic says, is this a 10+10 ZH League? This is indeed a 10+10 ZH League match. And Raymond says, I thought OK had force mate a few moves ago, but maybe not. Well, you're welcome to tell me, now that you can see the analysis, if I did and missed it. And Antic said, so he's not reading chat, right? And Raymond said he was at one point. Antic said, I guess I won't say moves here then, just in case. And Raymond said, there's an even more simple mate, king at d2. So did I miss a mate? A simpler mate? Okay. Apparently I did. Did I? You can say moves about the last game, or you can say moves after such stuff has happened. I wasn't reading the chat with the moves. So what were you saying? Knight takes e5 doesn't actually work. Pawn f2 forces king. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. But you can tell me if your ideas were correct, or if not. Okay, now I was supposed to give you commentary, so let's just begin again. So while e4 is the most recommended move, as it says, as they say for white, d4 is more positional, is slightly less tactical, and it makes for a slightly slower game. This is the London system. It's quite good to get the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e3. It just makes for a more active piece play. And then you play e3, and bishop d3 is a nice move because it challenges this diagonal, which is quite annoying. And the fact that if he takes and you have double pawns, these double pawns are actually, they're more of a strength than a weakness because they're in the center, they control a lot of squares. 4 squares of those 2 pawns. As long as you can keep them protected. Like if you lose this pawn, then they become a little bit weak. So I've defended this bishop with the knight because I don't want double pawns here and here. Double pawns on the f file, which are like isolated from these double pawns. Yeah, that would be a weakness, and I could end up losing pawns. Okay, and I castle. So we have a very equalish position, but white has something in his favor. I feel potential for an open f file, and slightly better control of the center, and maybe I have quite good control of this square. I mean, I said quite good control, not quite good enough control to stop him pushing the pawn, I have to admit. So I definitely will take that. And when he takes back, I'm then going to, I don't think I'm going to take back again, but I might just challenge the control of that square. Or the other thing I could do is the fact that this knight defends this pawn. If I could shift that knight, then I could take the d5 pawn. Okay. So if I go bishop takes, knight takes, then I don't really want to exchange off. I don't really want to invite his knight to e5. So it's very important to think, with every exchange, am I improving my pieces or his pieces? If he takes my bishop and I go knight takes, that's improving my pieces, bringing my pieces into the game. If I take his bishop and he takes knight takes, the most dangerous thing about that move to me is that that knight will be hitting on f3. And f3 is one of these entry squares into the king, where he might drop a pawn on f3. So, for those reasons, there are two moves I'm pondering. Pawn at g5, hitting this knight and then taking this pawn. If he moves the knight to it, it's just wasting time. And I like this move a lot. Now, it's true he could take this bishop, and then I have a sort of dilemma. Do I take back with the pawn, which then defends this pawn, so after this knight moves... He does have knight moves. Or do I take with the knight... And the advantage of taking the knight is that cuts off a lot of squares for this knight to move to. Can't move to these squares anymore. So I quite like the idea of knight takes bishop simply because it forces the knight just to go back to g8, which looks so ugly. So for aesthetic reasons, I'm going to take with this knight, even though it does mean he'll have an attack on g4. And now I've got then a second thing I've got to think about, which is, do I just pick up the central pawn and hang queen takes g4, or should I try and defend g4? And I think so. I think I'm not sure. The thing is, knight takes pawn, queen takes g4. I've got knight takes pawn here, picking up his rook. It's kind of awkward for him, and he doesn't have any knights or any direct mating attack on my king. Or any. You have to always watch out for the queen sacks. They're dangerous too. So for that reason, I think I'm just going to go straight in. Okay. Now e6. One has to be always a little bit wary about this in case I can just simply take it. So the moves that are coming to mind is simply take it, takes, and try and get in immediately. But unfortunately, after moves like queen h5, he's probably just got bishop at g6 check, and I don't really have the pieces to follow up. I don't think. I'd need knights or something. And then the other move I'm thinking is, well, if I move this knight, he's going to go queen takes g4. So maybe I just go pawn here, knight takes pawn, knight takes knight, queen takes knight. And that's a way of losing a pawn without losing this pawn, which I might regard as a more precious pawn because it's like my advance party into his position. And another thing entirely I might do is just sacrifice the knight for a pawn, just because that's just going to distract his queen away from all this stuff. And there may be some tactics, but I can't see anything along those lines. So yeah, there are definitely quite a few options I have in this position, and I'm just contemplating. All I have is pawn and bishop in hand. I feel if I go pawn here, knight takes pawn, knight takes, queen takes, I feel his position is still quite solid. And somehow if I take this queen takes, it takes his queen away from attacking g4, so it takes his queen away from attacking my king, and I feel it's making this potentially a weakness. So sacrificing on a knight takes c7 is quite appealing for that reason. Now knight takes pawn, pawn takes, queen here, bishop g6, yeah, it's not quite working. And then the other thing actually worth thinking about, a really crazy move, is queen here straight away. If you were to take my pawn, queen takes f7, king takes. I'd then have two pawns and two bishops in hand. So I could go pawn here check. If he goes here, pawn here check. But the problem with that whole idea is f8. And pawns and bishops can't get to f8. I could go bishop here, but how to get to f8? I'd need another knight or something to come in here to get to f8. Would I? Yeah, I think I would. King takes pawn, bishop here. Yeah, he could back off to f8, and then I have no piece that can really hit him on f8. But that's even another crazy idea that was in the offing. So yeah, this is interesting. It's kind of tempting. Like, is there some way? So I feel like the deflection. I feel like the knight takes e6 ideas aren't really working because I just don't have. I'd need another knight, or queen h5 type ideas aren't working. I need another knight to make them work. Pawn e7 just takes. I feel the queen is in a really good position guarding the king. It just doesn't really feel like it's working. So I'm going to take this pawn. And now the next move is going to be interesting. I'm going to go for something very interesting this move. Maybe pawn here. Now pawn here, unfortunately, he could just go knight takes pawn takes knight, knight takes pawn. So it doesn't quite work. What about pawn here? We could go bishop here defending this. So the point is that if he goes pawn here directly, I've got pawn here. But the thing is, again, he's got this bishop along this diagonal. So the next question is, maybe if I go rook here first and try and get in on his dark squares, but maybe that he wastes a bishop. Yeah, but that's not really a waste. That would be quite an annoying piece, hitting my king. So I don't want to. So I was contemplating rook c1, but then I realized he could just put a bishop on c6, and that's a very attacking piece on my position. So somehow that doesn't achieve my objectives. I'm also questioning whether this was a bit too aggressive. So another move I'm thinking is bishop here. But I'm bishop here. Or do I go straight in with the pawn? And I think I'm going to go straight in with the pawn. And the advantage of attacking is just doesn't give him time to attack me as well. So although I've sacrificed a piece, I've got quite good initiative. I've got much more active pieces. So the idea here of this move is if he takes that pawn, I'm going to drop a pawn on g7. Okay, so he does what I expected, which is, yeah, very good. And if I do a move like this, what does he do? Takes, and then the queen takes. I think that might be. He doesn't have any direct. I think that's a good option. So he would be winning a pawn, but then I'm in on his. I'm in on g7, and that's my aim. And he doesn't have any direct mating idea. Bishop takes knight, pawn takes. He does have a lot of knights. I mean, yeah, I hadn't thought of this. Yeah, so I was actually slightly worried that bishop takes knight, pawn takes, queen takes, and then queen takes here. But actually, I shouldn't have been worried about it because the queen covers the knight check. And you always have to check what are the checks on your king, and does your queen cover it? Okay, so I'm taking that one for sure. His queen takes back. Oh, okay. Yeah, the problem with the queen taking back is I was landing a bishop here, and yeah, it's a bit nasty. But the problem with this is I can just come in, say with a bishop here. So it's both attacking his queen and also like with an eye on attacking his king. It does block up my queen a little bit, but bishops can move back if necessary. So I'm going to do this. No, there's no direct mating threat. It's just a move to try and maintain some initiative and maintain some solidity to my position, some defense of this pawn which would otherwise be hanging. Yeah, you were saying here rook c1 looked good. Yeah, but I didn't like bishop at c6 against rook c1. But pawn at b5 looks strong, picking up material and initiating the luck on the c file. Pawn at, yeah, that's true. Okay, that's a good one, Mozart. I just noticed that your name is a play on the on the composer. I just had to simply not notice that earlier. So let's think. Pawn here looks nice for picking up material. That was my plan. I would normally just go pawn takes pawn, but I'm afraid he just takes this bishop hit this here. So the reason I'm doing this is just simply to defend the base of my attack. This pawn is actually the base of my attack. So if he did something like this, I'd just come in. So yeah, I'm trying to pick up material because that is good for my attack. So I have to admit this game has been a little bit easier than the last one, but it does help being white, I guess, because you just get the first move. Now, I could just keep on taking material. I could go straight in for a check. So I'm going to go with the check first, just because it doesn't hang anything. So I might as well do it. And then I'm going to take this knight. Okay, and this is the sort of point where I should really just stop and see if I can calculate a mate. No, maybe there isn't any mate. But I have simply got bishop here picking up the queen, and then my king is safe. So I think that's strong. You could block with the queen, but then I just pick up the queen. So without calculating a mate, this is picking up material, and the king remains safe. It's very important to always check: has he got material to attack my king? And yeah, even h3 is covered. If he had two knights and a queen or something, okay, I'm picking up the queen, and he resigns. So good games for Havu, and hopefully that's been fun for you guys to watch. And now let's just look at the chat. Rook c1 looked good, Mozart said. Okay. Pawn at 3, pawn at f6 was interesting too. One more move before you considered it. This is such an interesting variant, says OJ. So now we can actually have a look at the analysis board, just have a look at some of your suggestions. And you can in fact check them out yourselves as well. But just to look at move 13, you're thinking pawn at f6 here. Where are you? So here, the thing is, this f6 is very well defended. Oh yeah, I've got a challenge from a bot to play Crazyhouse. Okay, so let's just have a look. Knight takes c7 was not necessarily the strongest move, but the computer really likes my position. And rook c1, yeah, so rook c1, bishop c6. So it quite likes this. Bishop c6 is pawn at. You could go pawn at b5, pawn at d5. It's also suggesting. Yeah, that's interesting because if you take back with the knight. Yeah, and that's also blocking off this diagonal, which I was concerned about. Yeah. So does it like what I did at all? h6, a little bit less. Okay, so let's. Okay, I'll. Antic says, "Am I the strongest player in 10 plus 10? In this league, I am the strongest player. I'm not in this Lee Chess league. So I'm now going to take on the Stockfish 10, I imagine. So I assume there's a human operator. So okay, I'll play a game or two with this, and you can see the other side of things, i.e., me getting crushed." Oh, my rating's 2019. That's a nice rating. Okay, so we're playing the same opening that I played against Fahavu earlier, and maybe you can see the differences in how. I forgot to look at Esjati's suggestion. Knight h5 before pawn at h6. Yeah, well, I'll definitely go back and look at those two games later and see if there were things I missed. But I'll probably do that off stream. But feel free to tell me. Antic saying I should be 2100. Yeah, but 2019 is at this time of year, it's a sort of Quite a nice rating to mark the new year. Okay, so this this bot, Kiso Plays Crazyhouse, is thinking quite a lot. So again, we've almost followed the same opening identically as we played against Fahavu. But Fahavu took here, okay, and the bot plays the same. Interesting. And in this position, Fahavu played this, and I played this. So we'll see how it changes things up. Okay. And I played this, so I'll play the same. Was Fahavu actually Stockfish? Says Antic, yeah. So what did he play here? Yeah, so now I have got a choice. Do I castle immediately? Or do I put a bishop on e5? And at some point I would like... So the advantage of bishop at e5 is then that allows this knight to develop, because at the moment this knight is on guard duty. And I'm quite interested, would he put a bishop here, targeting d3, or would he try and defend the dark squares and say put a bishop here? So I'm kind of curious. Would he put a bishop here, or bishop here, or maybe something else? So I'll do this move. Maybe I should have castled first, but castling is essential because I can never really move this knight without castling. And the reason for that is because otherwise you'd have checks on the king which simultaneously defend. So they're moves which kind of both attack and defend at the same time, so that would give him great initiative. So also the nice thing about this bishop here is if he ever takes, even if he takes with the bishop, white will get a pawn on e5. And as we saw in the first game, pawn structure does matter in the sense that it dictates where you're attacking. At the moment, it's solid defense, solid control of the center. If you were to start to take this bishop, suddenly my pawns are pointing a little bit towards his king, which they're not quite doing yet. Now this move is interesting. It's covering the knight. So maybe he was afraid of ideas like bishop takes knight, queen takes, bishop takes, bishop, pawn takes, and stuff being a bit too open. So if I overtake the knight, he's going to go bishop takes. I'm not quite sure. And I'm tempted just to develop this knight now that things are free. And maybe the other move I'm thinking is stuff like this. So which of these two to do? So if I go here and he takes it, I can simply take back. So in chess, you'd always take back with the h pawn because you take towards the center, almost always. But in Crazyhouse, quite often you take with the f pawn just simply because you want the activity down the f file. So I'm not scared of him taking if I go here. The only question is it a bit too slow? It's not really threatening anything. Whereas knight here, it might be a worse move, but it does carry an immediate threat on this. It's not so easy to deal with. I think you'd have to take back. Yeah, it's not clear. I'm going to do this. I feel like it's a slightly more aggressive option. He does take. And I was saying all the while how I love to take back with the pawn. But if I take back with the pawn, I lose the whole point of this knight move. So for that reason, I'm actually going to take back with the bishop. And the problem is he could just replace the bishop here, but then I've got the potential for a draw against Stockfish because I could replace my bishop here. Okay, he doesn't go down that route. Okay, and now we see the disadvantages of not having moved this knight. I mean, I just didn't have time to do this and this at the same time. The disadvantage of not having moved this knight is it stops this knight from coming here to here. But as it turns out, Stockfish didn't want to go to either of those two squares. He wants to hit this directly. So I've got a knight and bishop in hand. There's the aggressive option, which is just go knight takes pawn and drop a bishop here. Although against knight takes pawn, he could just simply take this pawn, knight takes rook, and then immediately begin an attack on f3. And I know how Stockfish would love to do something like that. And I don't really want to let it. So I'm going to defend this pawn with the bishop, just to try and keep things solid. And yeah, I could have gone bishop here, but that doesn't work, because he just takes the bishop, takes back, and then wins the free pawn. So the only slight, so the slight worry is, can this bishop be kicked? It could be kicked with, say, a bishop here, but then if he ever takes that bishop, I can take back with the pawn instead of the knight, and that solidifies the center. And yeah, this at the moment is the base of my attack, so I have to take this. It's quite a serious thing. I mean, I'm even considering going knight takes pawn and pawn here just to keep on going. He has a lot of bishops. I'm thinking of knight here, bishop takes, but then he could drop another bishop. Okay, I'm going to go knight here. I think it's just to defend the knight while also trying to kick that bishop away. So yeah, we're getting to the stage where I think the position is probably still about equal. So takes back with the bishop or with the pawn. So this is a huge dilemma. What piece to take back with? I could take back with the knight. That's like a huge sort of exchange of stuff, and lose the queen, but there's no point for that. Or I could take with the bishop, or I could take with the pawn, or I could take with the other pawn. So which piece to take back with? Let's see. I mean, taking back with the pawn does activate the rook file, but it's got a knight and bishop in hand. So what's coming is another bishop on this file. In light of which, what should I do? And if another bishop is coming on that file, f6 would be handy. So, but then backing off this bishop, bishop takes bishop, loses a little bit of control on h6, which might have been a nice idea. Okay, so I'm down to 124 and I've got to decide. Difficult. I can't even rule out knight takes bishop as being a decent move. But I think I'm going to go with bishop takes bishop, just because I feel this is a very solid king setup. F2 defended, H2 defended. Wow, yeah, and this is the point where Stockfish takes over. So what do? I mean, I have to take this, right? And the threat is bishop takes pawn and knight at h3 checkmate. So, wow, that came quickly. So how to stop it? I just dump a piece on h3, that would stop it, but then he's got pawn at g4. And suddenly I've gone from pretty decent position to, oh my goodness, what has happened? So I wanted to go bishop at h3, but the problem is he had pawn at g4. So yeah. So this is the point where things start to go downhill. If I back off, he has knight here check and bishop here checkmate, so I've got to take it. Antic says, how many followers for face reveal? Not planning on a face reveal, but yeah, this is a real problem. Very nice move, knight g5. If I back off, bishop here, and then knight to h3. So I can't back off, but if I can't back off, it means I have to go forwards. I don't want to go forwards. Like, I've got nowhere to go to. So, okay, I go forwards, but this is just a disaster. I have nowhere to go to. Like, this knight is even defended. I can't even come up and come back down. So, gosh, Stockfish is hard, isn't it? There's a threat. He just wants to go queen here, checkmate. No, it's not queen here, checkmate. Bishop here, checkmate. Yeah, bishop here is not quite checkmate. Go here. But anyway, it's kind of mating very soon. If I take the knight. I'm not surviving. What do I do? I'll try and run. But if I open up this, then I'm trying to just get out, but it's not going to work. I'm just going to take this. And that opens up my... Yeah, so this is just not working. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing now. I'm just like... Bishop here is checkmate, right? Isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So well played, Stockfish. I'll just have a quick look where maybe I'll call it a day after that one. But yeah, I think I was doing really well. Maybe I had a critical decision here. No. Yeah. Apparently already I'm not doing so well. And f takes g3 was necessary. So yeah, I said in Crazyhouse, opening up the rook file is a good idea. Bishop takes seems so solid, but it's not in... Oh, it is the top move for a while. And then it thinks further. So difficult. What do you do? Bishop at h3, I was afraid of pawn at g5, so... But bishop at h3 was the only defense. But what about pawn at g5, just simply? And then bishop at g2. But this is just... I'd have thought he'd just take... Oh, I see, the idea is if he takes the bishop, you take his bishop. Yeah, so this would have been quite a neat way of defending, although still it's advantage to black. So where did white go wrong? Bishop at f4 apparently is too slow, maybe. Seems fine. Bishop at g3 straight away, challenging this bishop stronger. And then we still have a fairly even position. But even then it thinks black was doing quite nicely. Bishop takes e5 it thought was maybe a mistake, even though it's temporarily the engine top move. D takes e5, stronger. And I guess this knight move, it won't like it. Yeah. And then the other move I was considering was knight g3. And maybe knight g3 was stronger. It's hard to say. Plus 0.3. Yeah, so it's very tempting to do this move because it carries a threat, but actually maybe knight b3 is a bit more solid. Like, this bishop doesn't look like it's up to much, but knight g3 both develops the knight, blocks off anything it might be up to in the future. Yeah, so maybe knight g3 was... Knight g3 is the first mistake I'd like to acknowledge. Yeah, that was a mistake. And yeah, it's the first mistake that the engine finds. Just a very minor mistake. I go from plus 1.3 to minus 0.1. Doesn't Chess Network have a lot of followers, Antic? And no one's ever seen his face, so yeah, I'd like to take a leaf out of Chess Network's book. Okay, so while we're here, let's see if we could check out what is yellow. Yellow is correspondence chess. See, I am actually still playing correspondence chess, but it says I haven't played in a long while. It's just correspondence chess. The games take a long time to finish. I'm in the middle of a game, but we're in an end game, and it's going to take a few weeks yet until we're done. Okay. So how did these go in terms of Stockfish's assessment? Did I miss some mates? It seemed to be fairly smooth. So just to play through the two games, this is my game as black. We can ignore the opening because Stockfish might not like the opening in Crazyhouse, but it's a very practical way of playing. Bishop c5 it doesn't like so much as knight c6. Queen e7 check it doesn't really like. In fact, every single move I do it's saying is a mistake. It says I should just castle, but white is winning. It says taking the bishop is a mistake, but taking back, yeah, so definitely you should take back with this knight. And I think I said that during the video, just because that's developing a new piece and it's covering your back rank. So I pawn at e3. Finally, Stockfish says my move is not a mistake. D takes e3. Knight b3 it doesn't like. It much prefers knight to e4. Yeah, that would have been kind of awkward because then this pawn is then hanging. And this is quite a level position. Bishop g4 is a mistake. I mean, Stockfish is brutal, right? I mean, it says I should go knight c6. Every move I make, it says it's a mistake. Bishop at c5. Queen takes c5 is a mistake. It said I should go straight. My first instinct was bishop at f2 check, defending this pawn. But I thought I'd do this and pick up. But there are probably tactical reasons. Yeah, queen at e4 was the move I was afraid of. And apparently that's a mistake, because queen at a4 is the better move. So why is that a good move? Bishop d7 and then queen to e4. So use up a bishop and then go to queen to e4 with I don't see why. Yeah, I mean I'm just like I don't see why at all. And like hang on, so it says this is a mistake, but then it says I'm also doing really nicely. So I don't. Okay, so it turns out bishop to f2 it really thinks I'm doing really, really well after bishop f2. Okay. But what's the follow-up? Pawn at d6. Yeah, so just trying to play it quite solid. Okay, fine. Pawn at d6. This is sort of what it's the idea it had. Okay, but instead we go. I sacrifice my queen. He gets a little bit of initiative, and knight takes knight. Yeah, this is apparently a losing blunder. It is the move I was most concerned about. So. And then the best move in the position is really something I hadn't been thinking about at all, pawn at h6, and just trying to create weaknesses to get in on my position. But I don't see it, because like pawn at h6 I can just take it, then what's the follow-up? And then knight takes e5. Yeah, I mean this is next level stuff. I mean I really don't see what Stockfish is getting at. But okay, bishop takes I felt was okay, takes. So it looks slightly scary, but then Stockfish is already calling mate. Pawn at d2 check was good. Takes. Pawn at e3 was better than bishop at e3 apparently, saving up the bishop for later. That makes a lot of sense, because if I can put the bishop on c2, that's mate. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if he tries to run the other way, knight at c2 check. And the king, whichever way it goes, the queen lands with checkmate. Okay, so that was a really beautiful way of finishing off the game in this position. Mate in 3, pawn here. If the king goes here, knight here, the king has to go to one of these two squares and finish off with checkmate. If the king goes to here, you land with the queen here, check. And whether the king goes here or here, bishop here is checkmate. So, but because I landed the bishop, it made things a little bit more complicated. So I just picked up the bishop going for that same mate and then did this checkmate, which I'd been planning. How about a brother face reveal? Haha. Yeah. He'll be coming back soon, like today, but I'm taking advantage of doing this stream before he does. And for Habu says, on mobile, so can't chat and analysis, but thanks for the games. Yeah, that's good. I'll send him a link to the video as well. And for anyone in chat, so we got hopefully nice number of people watching. Just want to share with you the YouTube where I put all my videos, especially all the best Crazyhouse videos. Yeah, so do check it out. There's lots of really good content, stuff like Oppo weighs in against Yasser Seirawan and commentary on the final of the Crazyhouse World Championship and lots of stuff. Also, some instructive videos. Also, I did a really cool normal chess video called The Geometry of Chess, and I just saw just earlier today that 40 people on Lichess have liked that study. So then there's a video which goes with that study. So this game, so the second game, quickly looking at analysis board. Wow. Okay, so I managed to make no blunders as well in this game, so that's kind of very fortunate. Because in Crazyhouse, it's quite funny. The last game it said every move I made was a mistake, but none of the moves were blunders. So it's sort of hypercritical, but also kind of I can take away. Oh, and none of my moves are blunders, and so I can be happy, which you can't really be in chess. So pawn at g5. So what was the difference? Yeah, so pawn at e5 is a big mistake. So why is it a mistake? I mean, I didn't sort of get that intuition. Like, okay, I think what my intuition of why it's a mistake, I guess it's blowing open the center before the king is properly castled. That would be one criticism I might have. Yeah, I mean, maybe there are other reasons as well, and then suddenly, after this knight takes, the knight has to go back, and the king never will castle now. It's really in trouble. A move like bishop g4, I didn't see why, and then pawn at e6. Yeah, that's quite a neat idea. I really wouldn't think of that normally. The idea of you can take my knight, you can take a whole piece, but I'm going to get a pawn in on e6, and I'm going to get an attack in on your light squares, like I did in the previous game. Very hard to see that. Other good moves at c is bishop at d4, bishop at c3, bishop at a4. Really, I'm not seeing anything. It really just says don't. You really can't take this knight. But that's quite hard to see that, because if I didn't take the pawn, the other moves I was considering were like knight takes pawn, which I don't think is very good. Oh, it really likes it. Wow. With the idea of just going straight away. Yeah, f6, h6. Really? Okay. And someone was even suggesting at f6, I think, in the chat, maybe now or later. And even that's quite good. So yeah, let me just check the suggestions people had earlier. 13 pawn at f6. Yeah, so 13 pawn at f6 is apparently playable. I didn't. So the threat is simply takes and takes the rook. Yeah, that is kind of nasty, I guess. So he has to sort of defend the threat. I thought he could double take with the knight, but actually he can't, because takes. If you took with the knight, you could take with the pawn again, and you take with the other knight, and then you could take with the knight. Yeah, and suddenly that's quite a good way of saving our knight, which is under attack. So yeah, pawn at f6, nice idea from S. Jati in the Twitch chat. Okay, so after knight c7, queen takes, someone else suggested knight h5. Yeah, I think that's a bit slow. We don't really want a knight on g7, so that's why I was going in for pawns. But okay. And then I think the rest then worked out quite smoothly. Although apparently that lost the forced checkmate sequence. It's picking up the queen, so it encouraged the resignation. The forced checkmate sequence was knight at c5, which was in fact my original thought in this position, although I didn't see any mate. So just to see if the king drops back, we then have knight takes rook, with threats of bishop here and some kind of back rank issue. And yeah, there are only spike checks that black has in response. So okay, this is not a kind of an all check mate, but knight here check, king here. Is there an all checkmate somewhere? You have knight c7 takes e6 check, f takes e6. So yeah, maybe there is an all checkmate. Bishop c7 check. That's a weird one though, because it's check. If he goes king takes c7, knight takes e6 check. No, this knight takes e6 check, yeah. King b8, so knight d7 check, king here, and then you're picking up the queen with check, very beautiful. And notice how these two knights, if there's one takeaway lesson, notice that those two knights cover a beautiful square. So I often call this a knight cube, because you've got those two diagonals and these two diagonals with this knight. And when the king has only got one square to go to, and we even can just checkmate with the pawn now. Okay, so yeah, hope you've enjoyed the stream, and thanks everyone for watching. That was some thinking how to play the thinking process of how to play Crazyhouse through games with for Havu, and one with the Crazyhouse bot.